The Lord be with you. I had hoped this week to be with you in school, in your assembly hall, but it's not to be. Things don't always go according to plan, do they? And we've had to adapt time and time again this year. Maybe some of you are thinking about sports day at school and thinking, oh, and my mum and my dad and my grandma and all those who are coming to support me won't be able to be there. But you know, even when things change, even when things don't go according to plan, sometimes they can still be just as much fun. God is with us in every circumstance and will carry us through. And I want to tell you a story to illustrate that. You may wonder why I'm dressed like this. I'm dressed like this because I'm just back from a week's boating holiday. So here I am in my boating gear, like that. I'll change the glasses while I talk to you because it's a little bit easier. We set out from Datchet last Monday, which, if you remember, was very, very, very hot. We loaded the boat and there were 5 of us. Myself, my husband Clive, my eldest son Peter, who's now in his 30s, his friend Yuvi, and my middle son David, who lives with us. It was all going to be very exciting. Nothing could go wrong. We were going to have a peaceful, quiet few days on the river. We weren't going to go very far because rivers don't go in a straight line like roads do, and you don't drive at 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 miles an hour like you do on the road. On the river, you travel about 3 or 4 miles an hour, and the river goes like this. It meanders gently, and it's very peaceful and very slow and very restful. And we thought that first night we would simply try to get from Datchet back to Maidenhead. So off we went. My eldest son Peter and my middle son David were quite good at steering the boat, and Clive wasn't too bad either. So that was all lovely. We got as far as Maidenhead as we intended, working our way through several locks. I'll tell you about those another time. And we decided that we would like to eat at the boathouse. It was at this point that we made our first wrong decision. It was all my fault, of course. I said it would be a good idea to go through Walter's Lock so that we didn't have to deal with the lock first thing the next morning. We should, of course, have moored in paid mooring on the way up to the boathouse, but we didn't. We went through. Could we find anywhere to moor up? No, we couldn't. Eventually we came to a space that didn't have a no mooring sign, where it looked possible to moor, where we weren't blocking a view from anybody's house or parking in front of anybody's garden. We were simply parking along the towpath with some woodland, and it all looked fine. So we duly parked up and made the 20-minute, rather hot, dusty walk back to the boathouse, only to be told that it might only be 6:30 on a Monday evening, but they were already fully booked, and no, we couldn't go in. So we then walked an additional 15-20 minutes down alongside the Thames to the Trevi restaurant, with me smiling ruefully, thinking, this is my normal walking route. We had a nice meal, and my middle son, who had come dressed in jeans and a long-sleeved shirt, said he thought he'd go home, have a shower, and change into shorts and t-shirt, which sounded like a good idea. So off he went, and the rest of us walked back to the boathouse for a drink. When David came back, he said he'd go on back to the boat, and it was then that we got a text to say that in the time we'd been sitting at the boathouse, somebody had put a no mooring sign right next to our boat, and a note under our windscreen wiper on the boat to say, "You can't moor here." We rushed back and we got on the boat and had our first and only argument of the week as to whether we should move or not that night. In the end, we did move and we moored up further along opposite Cliveden, tying ourselves to some trees. Oh, unfortunately, UV has terrible hay fever, so he was then in a terrible state with hay fever. We slept, we woke, all was calm. And then we managed to reverse through the trees, and they scattered debris all over the boat. It could be cleaned up, but poor UV was really suffering by now. And Clive, my husband, was complaining of a bad back because the boat on the bed was hard. And Peter, my eldest son, was complaining of a sore shoulder because he had a shoulder injury as a teenager and it had annoyed it. But we carried on gently. We came to Wargrave after a few more locks, and the boys said they wanted to go to the chemist. So we moored up by a pub, and Clive and I sat down for a drink while they got their things from the chemist in the village. The chairs have to be the most uncomfortable chairs imaginable. And by the time he'd finished, Clive's back was even worse. Then I couldn't get back on the boat, because normally you have a little gap like that, perhaps between the bank and your boat, and you step down to get off and you step up to get back on. On this occasion, the place where we had moored, the river was almost level with the bank, so the river running here and the bank there, and our boat was way, way high, and because I have a knee problem, I couldn't get back on the boat. So there we are, the laughing stock of everybody in the pub, while I try every which way to get back on the boat, with somebody hauling and somebody pulling. Eventually, my husband, who's an engineer, who understands the logistics of things and can work them out, said to me, "Do you think you could sit back onto the boat and then you could swing your legs up flat and shuffle round and drop them down into the steps that lead down into the cabin? And then you might be able to stand up on the boat." It worked, thankfully. But by then we'd lost David, who'd gone home because he'd had enough. We carried on and we moored at Sonning Lock, and it was at that point that one of the loveliest things happened. A swan parents and their 6 cygnets swam into the lock ahead of us, paddling furiously as the water gradually rose up, and then sailing out of the lock ahead of us. It was a gorgeous, gorgeous moment. We moored up, by which time my poor husband was in a lot of pain with his back. Somehow or other we walked to the Bull in Sonning, and the rest of the party insisted that we were booking rooms there for the night. So we stayed, hoping that a hot shower and a comfy bed might sort out Peter's shoulder and Clive's back. By the next morning, Clive was walking sideways like a crab. He was in agony, and he said, "I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to call a cab and go home." So then there were 3. Peter, UV and I walked back to the boat. We decided to reduce the stress levels. We'd turn around, go back through Sonning Lock and make our way gently back home. And it all worked swimmingly well. We had a great, great day. We stopped at the Angel in Henley for lunch. We moored up and drank Prosecco near Marlow. We went for a meal. The boys then said there was no way they were sleeping on the boat overnight. Peter wasn't going to risk damaging his shoulder. So I ended up sleeping on the boat all by myself on Wednesday night while they slept in a nearby hotel. But you know what? It was lovely. It was peaceful. And I had a wonderful night's sleep, rocked gently like a baby with rain falling gently on the roof, which had started late on Wednesday night into Thursday morning. We then brought the boat back home. We arrived a bit early because I needed to come and check on my invalid husband at home. And so I got back Thursday afternoon instead of Friday morning. Nonetheless, it was a wonderful trip. I've come back feeling rested, feeling wonderfully relaxed, having enjoyed the beauty of the Thames, the slow pace of our journey, having enjoyed that afternoon drinking Prosecco with the boys, some of the lovely meals we had along the way, and despite things going wrong, it was a good time. We can all have a good time because God is with us in all things, and if we look for the positives, we'll find them. I'm going to end by singing a song, and I'm going to don my boating gear to sing. You may not be allowed to sing. Please ask your class teacher while I'm putting my hat on. If you're not allowed to sing, then join in the actions. With Jesus in the boat, we can smile at the storm, smile at the storm, smile at the storm. With Jesus in the boat, we can smile at the storm as we go sailing home. Sailing, sailing home, sailing, sailing home. With Jesus in the boat, we can smile at the storm as we go sailing home. I wish you all a wonderful sports day. Have fun, enjoy. It's different, but it'll still be great. God bless you.